Welcome to Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates, where we explore what it truly means to be an administrative professional in today's world. I'm Melissa Mahoney, CEO of the International Association of Administrative Professionals.
And I'm Rachel Suman, CXO of IAAP.
This podcast isn't your typical industry talk. We're here to bring you real conversations, real stories, and real solutions.
From AI to self-awareness journeys, we're here to discuss the deep issues that admins face every day. This is Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. Hi, everyone. So good to see you. Welcome back. We are quickly wrapping up this season. It has gone so fast, it feels like. And I am personally really excited to talk about this topic today. This is an area that I sometimes struggle with. So I will be vulnerable and share, like, most of what we're about to talk about, and me specifically, is pointing inward, which I am doing right now for those of you listening. So I'm really excited to dive in. We are going to talk about urgent versus important and how often urgent just kind of takes over our lives and causes reaction instead of proactivity. And we've got some really great tips, I think, to help us pause and make sure that we're doing the best things we can for the organization, for our executives, to move the work forward. So let's dive in if you want to.
Let's do it. I'm super excited, too, to talk about why this issue is particularly relevant to administrative professionals, because I do feel like it's fairly frequently that our days get taken over by this sense of urgency, and we can find ourselves operating in crisis orientation without even recognizing or realizing that we've slipped into that, which is something that Rachel and I both not just have experienced in our professional lives, but consistently have to navigate, even from a leadership capacity, but also on behalf of our community that we serve, because it's one of those things that happens in your day-to-day work life, and we tend to bucket that as a time management issue, or we need to solve for why I don't have enough time in my day to get all of the things done that I need to get done. But I think what we're really going to point to today is that it might be that there's a root issue here around how we think about our work. So that urgency versus importance hopefully will give you some access to explore and examine, inspect, is this showing up in your day-to-day work? So we'll talk about specifically what how we think this might relate to administrative professionals.
I love you said the term crisis orientation, and I love that so much. And I really want to underline it, because I do think, we talk a lot about mindset, and I don't know that this is a mindset shift. I think it a little bit is, as most things are. But when you are orienting to crisis, like it feels like when the same thing happened over and over again, you kind of start expecting that same thing, and we create our reality, right? So when you are in that crisis orientation or urgent orientation, like, that's what you're anticipating and even looking for, even if it may not exist. So I love that you said that, and that phrasing really kind of highlighted a really important part of this topic.
100% yes. And there are legitimate crises that exist inside of a workplace, inside of an environment, a society. We can definitely all agree on some pretty universal crisis scenarios. And if we really look at it and inspect it, that probably doesn't apply very often to what's happening in the workplace.
Small percentage.
It's a very small percentage. And yet, I think if we really look at and do some investigating, we might be more crisis oriented, because we're defining lots of things in this urgency bucket. So I think the first thing we really wanted to talk through is that matrices. The Eisenhower Matrix is what came up for us as we were exploring this. And if you've done any sort of time management training or exploration, some facilitators will use this matrix to talk through what is urgent versus what is important. And there's a scale here, if you look at the matrix. And so that's a great place to sort of start so that you can really have something, a tool or a resource to look at, to really start thinking through that framework of, is this truly something that is urgent and important?
Mm-hmm.
And does that fit in that category? So you really are going to have to look at your definitions
Mm-hmm.
of that. So let's start with some generic or general definitions of maybe urgency. What we would say might be
Mm-hmm.
urgent versus important.
Mm-hmm.
And what we came up with that we really, really liked was urgency is about that pressure of time. So this is something that is truly time sensitive. They demand, that immediate attention. There's a lot of pressure and demand to get to that deadline, or that deadline might be exceptionally tight, and you understand it's not a movable
Mm-hmm.
deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So that time sensitivity is a really key part, I think, of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And then importance actually relates more to impact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the consequence of this? What is this designed to create, do, change, impact? I think this is also a place where we would talk about, from an importance standpoint, things that are connected to strategy, connected to your organizational goals, things that really relate to why you're doing the things you do. So is this going to have lasting impact? Is this going to help us achieve the goals we've set? Is it focused more on long-term success versus that, this has to be done at the end of the day today?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that here the challenge for admins is really often that those two things can be really conflicting,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're talking about an admin's day-to-day schedule, your routine work life. That can be really conflicting because you may truly have a whole lot of deadlines that are truly, upon, first inspection, urgent. The deadlines are these things need to be done today. But there's an opportunity here to really look at, number one, are those realistic expectations? Are they reasonable? Do they really connect to things that are important?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't connect to the important things, why is there a sense of urgency around it? So while I appreciate the matrices and I think it's a great framework for you to really think through time management, what we're really challenging you today around is something that requires more depth.
Yeah.
Because you really need to get to the bottom of, like, the matrices is going to give you, like, is it urgent and important? Okay, it goes here. We should focus on this. This has to be done. Or it's not urgent and it's not important. Put it off the list. It doesn't get any attention. That's easy to frame up, but if you don't really look at the definitions of those words and how the definitions influence where you put things in those quadrants, it's really sort of a surface level activity. So
Yeah.
it's really important. We're giving you sort of our definitions, but everyone is going to have to define those definitions specific to your workplace, to the work the type of work you're doing, the partnership you have, the work, your organizational goals. There's all kinds of nuance that
Mm-hmm.
might come into how you define those before you even get to plotting your tasks on this matrix.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, excuse me, that I want to acknowledge is the unique part of the admin role for this is that this often also includes other people's views on the work that you are receiving. And that is very unique. Like other professions don't necessarily receive that in the same way that admins do. So, let's say you're supporting 4 different executives. They all probably have their own definitions of urgent, important, what their priorities are, what their goals are, all of that. And so you are receiving all of these things, and energy is contagious, right? So that's the other piece that we really haven't addressed yet, but urgent things have an inherent energy to them, whether it is within ourselves, whether it is other people bringing that energy to us, and it is infectious. sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a not great way. That sounds judgy. Sometimes in a productive way and sometimes in a not productive way. And so that, I think, is really the unique and challenging part of this for admins, and why we felt like it was really important to elevate is, we all know that we're like, we have too much to do. We have to figure out how to get it all done. Like it's just, it can be kind of chaotic, but this is the part that if you as the community, if we as administrative community can really utilize this skill to hone in on what is moving the bar higher, what is moving the work forward, where are we putting our time, our energy, and how can we even help support others managing their energy around, is this really urgent? Is this do it right now? Or is this do it right now because you procrastinated and I got it at the last minute, for one example, so, and that goes back to all of the leadership things that we've talked about, again, ad nauseum, is because it can be really difficult to challenge your executive to say, I hear you saying that this is urgent. I have these 5 things that are urgent and important. What can I move? What can I shift? So I kind of took it on a little bit of a tangent and didn't mean to, but I do think it's important to acknowledge, like, this is not all just you have your work, you organize it, whether it's the Eisenhower Matrix, whether it's, I know some people do the ABC, how you prioritize it is really up to you and your work preferences. But there's also a piece of this that includes others' work and definitions and all of that. And that's not easy to navigate.
It's not easy. And to your point, it's kind of unique to the administrative professional role that you have so many of those external components that you have to navigate. When you're talking about even your own time management, it can feel like it's out of your control at times.
Yeah.
So this is a way to really harness some more control over what you are contributing to this, and allows you some access to even language around challenging other people's definition of urgency and or importance. And when you really think through, like, is this, the ABC method is a great one. I've seen people use the stoplight method, whatever that is, whatever the methodology is, it still requires you to look at how are you defining what gets put into each of these buckets? How are you defining what's an A thing or a B thing or a C thing? Is that someone else that's making all of those choices for you? And if not, we invite you to take some agency. If it is, we invite you to take some agency over what you do have more control over, or what choices you can challenge in the space. And is that with your partner, your executive? Is that with the team that is contributing to workflow? Where can you have those crucial conversations around what's reasonable and deliverable for you, and what's truly going to create impact in your day? So it's all rooted in these leadership competencies that we keep going back to.
You knew we were going to bring them up.
But it's true. Like, the reality is, like, if you really look at the root cause of some of the biggest challenges and issues we have in the workplace, as it relates to anyone in the workplace, not just administrative professionals, it really truly boils down to leadership competencies, and the ability to be present and really inspect, evaluate that introspection, which is what we're asking you to do. Just, we're asking you to do it around a very specific part of your role and your day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we have some tips that we'll share that may help you craft questions for yourself, for others, as you kind of, maybe you take the night before to sit and pause. And, I've heard so many times from our community, I know you have too, that, you go into the morning, excuse me, and you have your to-do list, right? And you're like, this is what I'm going to get done. And by 8:45 in the morning, it is out the door. It is in the trash. It is wherever it is. And you're like, well, there goes all of those, high plans and everything, because this came in and this crisis came in and this crisis came in. And I know we all can also identify, we get to the end of the day and we're like, I didn't stop, but I have no idea what I accomplished, right? Like we can all identify with that. And I don't know about y'all, but that is a little disheartening to wrap a day and think, I did a whole bunch of stuff today, but what was it? Did I just answer emails all day? Like, what was it? So really, I think even just a pause, and I'm pointing at my notes like that's helpful, but that I think is a really important part of this work. Is it's very easy to operate from that reactivity space. You mentioned crisis orientation, like that space is very like, especially I think also to the admin community, those of us who are in support, those of us who are helpers, those of us, who that is kind of a natural orientation. It's somebody comes to us with a quote unquote crisis and we jump to attention, right? We're like, we have to help. We have to fix this. We have to, work on this. And just taking a breath, I think is an essential, and it feels so simple, but it is an essential first step to be able to then put your matrices, your ABC, your stoplights, whatever it is. And we're not saying you need to do that to every single thing. You don't need to be like, hold on, I need to sit and map this on my matrix. But once you kind of practice it, you can start to do that very quickly in your mind and sort and file and put that together, and then start moving into some of the other things that we'll mention as far as, is this important? Is this urgent? Is this both? And help you be more proactive, even if it is a crisis situation.
Yeah. I definitely want to get to some of these specific challenges and strategies so that you've got some maybe more tactical or tangible outcomes here. But let's talk about, because I really loved these challenges that we came up with that are very admin specific challenges. The interrupt driven role, where admins are constantly facing that disruption in your day. You talked about
nobody can identify with that.
The plan when you walk into the office, and how often we never ever get to achieve the things that we plan for our day. That's uniquely not the only position that faces it, but faces it consistently on a day-to-day basis. I think there are a lot of roles in the business environment where they actually get to work on consistently the things that they needed to work on for the day. Admins are unique in that it's part of the job.
Yeah.
Part of the job is truly to navigate those disruptions and the things that pop up on behalf of whoever it is you're supporting. That's part of the role. Is we've talked about before how versatility is one of the most intriguing things, I think, about the role, but it's also one of the most challenging things about it. Is you never really know what your day is going to look like. It's not going to look the same as the day before. We know that.
And that's a draw for some of us. So that's not a bad
It's not a bad thing, but this allows you, what we're trying to point back to is this gives you some more agency in that space. So it's you're never going to change it because it is truly part of the role. It's actually what makes it great. And we can fall, I don't want to use the word victim came to mind first, and that's too strong of a word. And that's really though where my mind goes around, like us, instead of being in charge of that and feeling like we have some ownership in that, we often are reactive to it. So maybe that's a better way to frame it versus victim mentality, because I don't think it's that extreme. But it is proactivity versus reactivity, maybe more in that lane. And that is a very unique thing to the admin role. Managing multiple stakeholders. Not everyone in an admin role manages multiple partnerships. But every single admin
Mm-hmm.
manages multiple relationships on behalf of the organization, your true partner, whoever you're partnering with. It's not just that singular relationship that you're managing. You are expected to manage relationships both internally and externally,
Mm-hmm.
which again, that points back to what you were talking about, in terms of everyone else's urgent issues become your urgent issues, and that transferring their energy and their mentality around productivity. uh, This hopefully will help you determine what parts of that you do have some voice in and ownership in, and what parts of that you don't.
Yeah.
And those are the places where, maybe you don't need to spend a lot of energy. You just know, if it comes from this place, whether I think it's a priority or not, it has to be a priority.
Yeah.
But there are all of these other places where I do have some more voice. I do have some more ability to challenge or to ask questions, or, to take some agency.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really key, unique issue
Mm-hmm.
for admins, because you are managing multiple relationships.
Yeah.
And the last one was the visibility trap. And this one is really tricky for admins. And the visibility trap is really talking about the things that seem really important because they have high visibility.
Yep.
So, those are the projects where multiple people can see,
Mm-hmm.
they're not the behind the scenes things, they're the external forward facing priorities and projects. And because they are so visible, we define them immediately as something that's urgent.
Yeah.
Because we feel pressure
Mm-hmm.
that other people are going to see whether or not I'm contributing to this, whether or not I meet the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tend to not even put them through the filter.
Yeah.
And I think admins, because again, you're sort of in this nucleus role,
Mm-hmm.
that visibility trap becomes a real challenge for admins. So the pause, and even just practicing building this muscle around how you navigate. I loved what you said about, like, you're not going to be able to stop and put every single thing you do through this.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be great if you could just push a button.
Excuse me, hold on. I have to
Let me marinate on this, please. Oh, please. We don't have the ability to do that. But if you spend some time, when you do have the capacity, spend some time on it, you do start to build that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in real time, you can start to think through, your brain you'll reprogram your brain a bit. Instead of going into reactive mode, you can stop, pause, filter it through, and at least determine if there's a space here to ask a question, or buy yourself some time.
Yeah.
To really consider it, because these are all spaces where I think the reason that we really wanted to call these out is because these are really unique and truly relevant to admins, and some of the reasons why we fall into the reactive space, or the everything is urgent space, and that creates crisis orientation.
Yeah. Whole other podcast episode, but see lizard brain.
Yes.
Just Google lizard brain. That will help. As you were talking about reprogramming your brain and that recognition. So that's another podcast episode.
It is another podcast. And while I think we could probably talk for 2 days about this topic, I know we're coming close to time. So anything specifically you were feeling like we wanted to call attention to?
I think some of the tips that we wrote down are really important. This first one I really wanted to share, and I think we have time for the last couple, but the 24-hour test I think is really great, and that can be crafted into questions that you can either ask yourself or others when things come across your desk. That is, will this matter 24 hours from now? Now you can adjust that. So will this matter next week? Will this matter next month? Like you can use it to further file those items into the additional buckets. But from the first reaction, like, is this going to matter the same time tomorrow? Is a really great way. If the answer is and you have to get real honest. So it can be easy to be like, yes, of course it is, because you're caught in lizard brain again. You're like, oh my God, of course it is. But if you can really pause and answer that question honestly, that's a really great way to differentiate between urgent and important.
Definitely. The other one that we had here was the impact analysis. So, time sensitivity is a great tool or metric to use, but also impact.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we doing this? What's the outcome, and what truly is it going to impact? So there's some analysis there just around, again, the importance. When you're thinking through that, it's not as easy as just, yes, it is, or no, it isn't. You really have to put some thought behind what is the true short-term, long-term, midterm impact of this project or this task or whatever the ask is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we'll work on putting this out on our socials, but we'll have a resource available with some of these questions that you can use. We'll put the matrix on there so you can actually see it in real life and use it if you want. But keep an eye on our socials. Follow us on whatever platform you prefer, and we'll put a downloadable resource on there for you so you can really start to craft and use this muscle a little bit.
That's a great idea.
Yes. Thank you all so much.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of admins with us.
Remember, this podcast isn't just about listening. It's about taking action. Whether it's advocating for yourself in the workplace or supporting your fellow admins, let's continue to elevate this profession together. If you have any thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or through our website.
Until next time, keep pushing beyond the desk. And remember, change begins with you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.